Hey gorgeous, welcome back to the makeup aisle. Today's video is going to be the oily girl's guide to summer makeup. I tend to have a very oily T-zone year-round, but during the summer it is absolutely out of control, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate because the weather is just hot, not just warmer where I'm at, but just hot and sometimes very humid and muggy. So regardless sometimes of what you do, you still sweat. Which is not really a good look for anybody. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a couple of products, skincare and makeup that I personally rely on heavily during the summer months. Not so much during the winter months because even though I still have an oily T-zone in the winter, I am overall a little drier, so I can get away with using pretty much anything. And what I'll do anyway is I will use moisturizing primers and cream foundations and things like that because I am a little drier and I tend to get dry patches during the winter. But summertime is an absolutely completely different story altogether. It's just like over the top crazy. It's not just the oily T-zone, it is everywhere. So to start out, I'm just going to go over a few of my personal favorite skincare items that I tend to use during the summer to help to keep my skin drier, so that way it's not as oily during those months. The first thing that I use that I love and I started using last year is the Badescu drying mask, and that's what that looks like. You can get this brand at Ulta. I want to say that this costs probably between like $12 and $20, if that. What I love about this is that it's basically a drying mask, and that's what it looks like. I've used a lot, as you can see, and it looks like a traditional mask. Once you put it on your face, it just looks like you have clay all over your face. You leave it on for 20 minutes. It doesn't give you a range, so I always leave it on for a full 20 minutes. It dries down completely dry, and then what I will do is I will take a face cloth with warm water and then just wipe it all off, and then at the end when it's all wiped off, I'll just kind of put some water on my face to make sure that everything is off. I use this once or twice a week, and I have noticed a huge difference in how oily my skin tends to get during the summer. What I like about it is that it does dry the skin down. So this is for definitely people with oily skin or acne prone skin, which is kind of almost the same thing. I think when your face produces a lot of oils, it is so easy for your pores to get clogged and that much easier for you to actually break out as opposed to somebody who may have drier skin. So I love the fact that it dries the skin down. It doesn't make the skin dry, but the mask dries down really nicely. I mean, once I start like wiping it off, it just cracks everywhere, which I love. And then I can tell a difference in how my skin looks even after one use. One thing I will say about this mask is that it absolutely stinks to high hell. There's sulfur in here, which I'm sure helps with the kind of drying mechanism of the mask and trying to draw out those impurities from the skin. But overall, I am a huge fan of this mask, and I definitely will be repurchasing this one. This is my first one, but as you could see from the inside, I have used a lot, but that was from last summer. I do not use this during the winter because there's no need to, but during the summer, I use it faithfully 1 to 2 times a week and try to really stick with that 2 times because, like I said, I just noticed a difference in how my skin actually produces oil the rest of the days of the week when I don't use this mask. Another kind of, I guess, face mask, if you will, or exfoliator that I like is the Dr. Brandt's Microdermabrasion. I got this in a boxy charm, I want to say, and it quickly became one of my favorite kind of like face products to use during my regimen. I will use this once a week, and even though it is an exfoliator, what I like about it is it does take off that top layer of the dermis or the skin so that you're getting off like all that crud that kind of stays stuck on there, because I wash twice a day. I use astringent sometimes, especially if I have breakouts, but a lot of times during the summer, or if you're just oily year round, your skin is just almost going haywire. So the fact that I can do this microdermabrasion, get that like that dead layer of skin off once a week really also helps. So I find that the Badescu mask and also the Dr. Brandt exfoliator together during the week really do help, I think, to kind of keep my skin a little drier during the summer. I have definitely noticed a difference as I am using them consistently. The next thing I use if I have breakouts, and this is only on the actual breakouts is this Clear Proof Blemish Control Toner from Mary Kay. I use this for my son. I have the set for him, which comes with a cleanser and like a spot treatment. But if I have breakouts, I will use this. I just put it on a cotton pad. Like I have a little breakout here and I had one here. So I'll put some of this on a cotton pad. You only need a little bit, and just kind of dab it and rub it right on that spot to make sure that it's continuously drying out anywhere where I have blemishes. You can use this on your entire skin. It's safe to do so. I pretty much use it on my son's entire skin because he's going through puberty now. He's 16, so that's just everywhere. But for me, if I have a breakout, I love using this because it's just kind of like a spot treatment, and really does help to dry out those blemishes. As far as moisturizer goes daily, I do use an oil-free moisturizer, and this one is the Timewise Age Fighting Moisturizer, also from Mary Kay, and this is the combination to oily skin. It's fragrance-free, suitable for sensitive skin, and oil-free, of course. You still want to moisturize even though you're oily or you sweat during the summer. I have heard this countless amounts of times. People, I think, that have oily skin think they do not need to moisturize. You still do need to moisturize. Moisturization on the skin, the thing is that if the skin isn't moisturized, and I hope that is correct, I'm kind of going off memory here, it just continues to produce more oil. Also, putting a moisturizer on your skin helps to protect the top layer of the skin against all of the elements outside. So when you go outside, your skin is catching all the pollution, all the crap that's outside. Doing a moisturizer before you do any primer or anything like that just adds an extra layer of protection. So I never ever skip a day of moisturizing my skin. Again, I just tend to use oil-free moisturizers. And again, this is what I use, but it's not what you need to use. But if you have oily skin, oil-free is definitely the best way to go. What I do is I just keep it very light with the moisture. I just use a little less during the summer, kind of, rub it between my hands and then go over my skin, just making sure that I get the skin moisturized, but not as much, of course, as I would use in the winter. So moving on to actual cosmetics or makeup, I want to talk about two face primers that are my go-to during the summer especially, but I actually will use these during the winter in my T-zone specifically. And I have talked about these two in prior videos. If you've seen any of my videos, you know that these are like on top of the world for me. The first one is the Makeup Forever Step 1 in the mattifying version. This is without a doubt one of the very best, in my opinion, mattifying foundation primers out on the market right now. It works so quickly. Basically what it does, it just dries down. As soon as you put it on your skin, it almost turns just a bit tacky, which is actually good because then when you're putting on more makeup, it's really adhering to the primer. So I absolutely love this. This is my first full size of this. I always was buying like the trial size, but it is without a doubt one of my favorite mattifying primers. The second primer that I use is the Becca Ever Matte Poreless Priming Perfector, and that's what that looks like. This is even more mattifying than the Makeup Forever one. This one, when you put on the skin, it literally just, it doesn't suck moisture out of the skin, but it literally just dries up. It also turns tacky, which I love, so whenever I put cream foundation over it, or even my mineral powder foundation, it just tends to stick to it because of the stickiness, so it really grabs onto whatever foundation I put on after that. These are clear, and they don't, again, they don't dry out the skin to the point where all of a sudden now you have dry patches. It's just the fact that it's not something like a MAC strobe cream or a Too Faced Hangover RX, where I actually do use those during the winter because my skin is very dry, it's very sallow, there's not a lot of color to it, so I kind of want to pep it up. During the summer I have absolutely no problem with that, especially with the sun. I tan a lot, and of course all the sweatiness that goes on during the summer months. Moving on to my favorite foundations, I pulled 3 that I have, and these are my go-tos when I know that I'm probably going to be outside in like sweaty conditions, or if it's going to be really muggy or humid. My number one foundation though that I use during the summer is the Hourglass Immaculate Liquid Powder Foundation, and that's what that looks like. This is the old packaging. They actually have a new packaging, which after this summer I will have to get because this will already have been expired. I used it today on my skin. This is the kind of foundation that you have to work in seconds imperfections. That's how good it is. As soon as you put it on, I use a damp beauty blender. I start blending it out. It just mattifies literally down to almost a powder finish. I don't have to powder if I don't want to. I just tend to like an extremely matte finish for my face. I don't want any shine, nothing. So I will use a little powder over this. But if you are a person who doesn't like to use powder or doesn't really care for it, this is one of those foundations that once you put it on, it looks like powder, it feels like powder, it acts like powder. So you don't have to add anything extra if you don't want. The next foundation that I have is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place Makeup. This foundation has been talked about so much here on YouTube because it is absolute perfection. I have even seen women give birth in this foundation and it looks flawless throughout and maintains like just its gorgeousness even after they've given birth. This is one of those foundations that still is light on the skin but gives you very airbrushed finish. I love it because although again I set with powder, it is a good foundation that you don't necessarily have to set with powder. It's not as matte as the Hourglass, I will say that, but it's got a really nice powdery, like airbrushed, photoshopped finish. And the fact of the matter is that it lasts for so long. So even when I sweat, if I sweat through this, it doesn't seem to really go anywhere, which that may sound weird, like you'd think it would just go everywhere. But what I tend to do is I will blot the oils anywhere that, I find it on my face. So I don't necessarily rub. So this does last like really a long time. I'm talking about at least 10 hours. When I know that I've got a long day and I need to have my makeup look really fresh at the end of whatever I'm doing, as fresh as when I put it on, this is what I always reach for. The last liquid foundation that I have is the Urban Decay All Nighter Waterproof Longwear Foundation. I was extremely late to the bandwagon with this. I had heard wonderful reviews about it. The fact that it did really last several hours beautifully without budging, without fading, without kind of cracking up around the face. But one thing I didn't, if I didn't hear it or really didn't put a lot of mind to it, is that it's a wonderful matte finish. I always use powder again, but this is such a gorgeous foundation. It goes on so smoothly, just kind of makes everything look airbrushed. It really, like, if you have some discoloration, it evens everything out just beautifully. So this is another one that I would definitely recommend if you have oily skin or just, tend to sweat a little more during the summer or have an oily T-zone. This is a perfect foundation to use for your skin. The last foundation I have is actually my mineral powder foundation. I will use this most of the time for the week. I do not use liquid foundations too much because my skin is not a happy camper when I do. Like the blemishes, I don't know if you could see it there, and I had one here. It was because I was doing so much makeup and I was practicing, but I was using my liquid and cream foundation. So of course, I don't care how light it feels on your skin, that's still a lot of gunk to put on your skin. And after a couple of days straight of this, my face was just like, okay, you're done, I'm not having it anymore. So what I tend to use on a daily basis is a mineral powder foundation. And this is what I use. This is the mineral powder foundation from Mary Kay. During the summer, I will use beige 2, and during the winter, I use beige 1.5. I love this because you can build it up without it looking cakey, and if there's certain spots that you need to even out to, like, the rest of your face, I just take my brush and I concentrate on certain spots and everything just evens out really nicely. You get really nice coverage, medium coverage. I'm not going to say it's full because it definitely is not. But if you're okay with medium coverage, or if for work, you just use something light, this is a perfect foundation to do that. Again, I think it lets your skin breathe a little more than constantly using cream and liquid foundations. So this is what I tend to use most of the week. I will use my liquid foundations at least 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, just to obviously, roll through my stuff because I have a lot of liquid foundations. But almost on a daily basis, especially during the summer, because I want to keep the oils away for the day, no matter what I'm doing, I will use a mineral powder foundation. For powders, I have 2. Again, this is just some of my favorites, but as you can see a theme here, you want to use oil-free moisturizer. You want to use something like a drying mask or microdermabrasion to make sure that you're exfoliating the skin so you kind of get those dead skin cells off your face. You know, if you're going to use liquid foundations, you want to use something that's mattifying, that's oil free. You don't want to use anything that says luminous to it or luminizing. Like I said, something like the MAC Strobe Cream Primer, I have it. That does not come out of that drawer until the winter months hit, because it would just so defeat the purpose of trying to stay matte during the summer. The primers that I talked about, very, very mattifying. You want an oil-free primer. You don't want anything that feels like a moisturizer or feels like a cream. So moving on to powders, again, some of these foundations you don't need to set with powder, but I like an extremely matte finish. Plus, I think it helps me throughout the day, especially in the T-zone where I get a lot of oil and a lot of sweat, you know, during the summer months. It helps to keep that a little more mattified during the day. So for pressed powder, I love my NYX No Filter powder, and that's what it looks like. It is a wonderful powder. Like, I can't say enough about this. It's very light, it's very finely milled, but it works for what it needs to do. I have a lot of pressed powders. I have Maybelline. I have a couple of others that just I can't think of right now, but I really do like this NYX one. Whenever I use it, it never fails that I look in the mirror and I'm like, this looks so, so good. It just mattifies everything beautifully and leaves the skin looking gorgeous. So for loose powder, this has quickly become my holy grail, and I've talked about this before. This is the Flower Beauty powder, and this is called Powder Up. It's loose powder, shade L02. I think they have an L01, so this is the darker shade. This powder is so darn good. Like, as I kept using, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe really how good this powder is. It's so fine, you don't need a lot, and it just does the job with not a lot of powder. The good thing I like about this too is that if you do want to powder up a little more, it is not going to look gross, because I think as you add more powder to your face, whether it be blush or highlighter, actual powder, whatever it is, sometimes it can tend to look cakey as you continue to pile the stuff on. That is not the case for this powder or the NYX powder or pressed powder that I just talked about. I can pile it on and it doesn't look any less flawless. It doesn't look caked on. It doesn't look like I'm wearing a pound of makeup, and more importantly, it doesn't feel like I'm wearing a pound of makeup. So if you haven't tried the Flower Beauty Powder Up powder, oh my God, just go and get it. I think it's like $13. As soon as this is done, I am absolutely repurchasing it again because it is just that good. I absolutely love this powder. For blush, the first one and really the only one that comes to mind, although blush is powder if you're not going to use a cream blush, and it, you know, tends to last okay, but I have heard, and I've used this blush, that this blush is perfect for people with oily skin, and that is the Tarte Amazonian Clay Blush. Because it is clay based, it is very mattifying. It doesn't dry the skin out, but it's not a very, it's creamy because it is, like I'm touching it right now, it's creamy, but once it goes on the skin, it really keeps the skin mattified and looking really nice. Like I said, I have other blushes. If I want to use a powder blush, for the most part, I have no issues, but this is far and away the very best blush that I have used for oily skin. I don't tend to get any oil when I use this blush. I actually also have a few Tarte blush palettes, which I absolutely love, but again, you can also get these separately like this individually, because I believe that the palettes I have are no longer available. They were just limited edition. But if you have oily skin, try this Amazonian Clay Blush from Tarte. I don't think you will be disappointed. And then the last thing I have as a suggestion for surviving the oiliness and the sweatiness that is during the summer months are oil blotting sheets. I have different oil blotting sheets. So many companies make them. Elf, Boscia, Tatcha, just really so many. Palladio also makes a really good one. I don't have that here with me, but I love that because it's an oil blotting sheet, but it also has powder, and it comes in different shades, so it's not just one, you know, like one shade of powder. And when you're putting it on your skin, you're adding a little bit of powder, but it doesn't look caked on or anything like that. Plus, you're taking away the oils. So the one I have here, just kind of to show you, is are the oil blotting sheets from Tatcha. These are very good. These are big. I actually just used one right before I started filming, so I'm going to show you what that looks like. So that is oil getting taken off my face. And I'm inside the house with, you know, air conditioning and that sort of thing, but I just tend to be very oily. So these oil blotting sheets are just perfect for quick touch-ups. If you are the type of person that doesn't like to continuously powder your face throughout the day, but wants to make sure that the oils are not, not visible on the skin, oil blotting sheets are definitely one of my best recommendations that I can tell you to get. They make small ones that you can keep in your purse. The Tatcha ones that you see here are pretty big. Boscia has really good oil blotting sheets. I've purchased those many times in the past, and they have different types of oil blotting sheets. So some of them are charcoal, some of them have green tea. It really is all in what your preference is, but I can say without a doubt that oil blotting sheets are going to be your best friend if you have oily skin or if you just tend to sweat a little more during the summer. So that does it for this video. I hope it gave you some insight as to some products that you can use to help you if you have oily skin or just tend to get a lot sweatier during the summer. These again are just the products that I use and I love, but again, anything oil free is going to be your best friend. Oil blotting sheets, don't get anything that says luminous because you know that that's just going to add more shine and oil to your face. But again, I hope this helped you out a bit in your search for things to make your skin a little more matte if you have oily skin. Please subscribe to the channel. Please also remember to click on that little bell so you get alerted as to when I upload new videos. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.